families. This week on Community Chat, Hagen Nares, truck wreck and brain injury lawyers, is speaking to attorney Christina Gilbertson of the Gilbertson Law Office. Christina is the go-to for small businesses in Colorado. She assists with business formation and offers subscription and flat fee projects to assist your business. She also does estate planning for small business owners. Think of her as your fractional in-house counsel. She can help you with anything that has to do with the business. Christina is here to talk about her journey to starting Gilbertson Law Office, what it's like to be a client of hers, and a tip for small business owners. Welcome, Christina. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, fantastic. I'm so excited to talk to you. I've known you for a while. We've chatted about business, and I want you to just share your guidance with our community that involves a lot of small business owners. But first, we would just like to know your background and how you even started Gilbertson Law Group.
Yeah, of course. So before starting Glow, as I lovingly refer to it, I was a partner with a large nationwide law firm. I was essentially one of the managing partners of the Denver office of that branch. Not by name, but for all intents and purposes, was essentially managing everything. And we were doing all things trial litigation. Jokingly, I'm a recovering litigator. And we were doing a lot of insurance defense types of work. So there'd be some car accidents and stuff where you and I would have been on opposite sides of the table at depositions. Also did a lot of construction defect stuff, different business, just disputes, things like that. And I did that for about 15 years and started to kind of get just disenfranchised with it. I was working with really big, Fortune 100 companies across the US and kind of just felt like their local mouthpiece and not like I was really making a difference. I just needed some local puppet to tell them, to say what they wanted me to say. And it wasn't great. And then there's also some just political things, as far as with the firm, it changed a lot while I was there. I was at the same firm for 11 years and it grew tremendously. And I wasn't loving it anymore. So one day I took a phone call with an old friend of mine who actually had been my law clerk back when I was practicing in Las Vegas. And he was just a little baby lawyer going to University of Nebraska. And he came and worked for us for the summer and he was a hot mess and he didn't know what he was doing as a lawyer or anything like that. But I really took him under my wing and he ended up becoming an associate at that firm and moving out after he graduated. And then went on, you fast forward 10 years or whatever it was. And he was a very successful law firm owner in Las Vegas. And he always touched base with me and he calls me Yoda. He's my little Padawan because we kind of that was just the relationship we had because I enjoyed mentoring the younger attorneys. And he called me one day and he's like, why are you still working for that firm? And it happened to be the end of the day that was a very difficult day with one of my associate attorneys in the office. And I was like, you know what? You're right. If I look around and I see these people, these other attorneys that are doing it themselves, I'm like, if they can do it, I'm sure I can figure it out. And worst case scenario, I'll go back to where I'm at, or I'll find another job, or my friend offered me to be able to work with him because I'm still licensed in Nevada. And so I was like, all right, let's make this jump. And so that was in August of 2018. And that same friend I'm of counsel with his firm even to this day, although I'm not really doing any work for them anymore. But for that first couple of years, he sent me a lot of contract work to kind of help me get off the ground and to build my clients. And I haven't really looked back. I'm not an entrepreneur by nature. I liked the things like a steady paycheck and benefits and somebody else having to deal with all the administrative stuff. But since that time, I've got my firm. My husband has bought a business, so now we are a 2 business owning family. And it's just kind of funny how things have changed in the last 5 years, but it's been fantastic. And I'm so grateful for the journey that I've had. But when I left the big firm, I realized I still wanted to work with small businesses, or I wanted to work with small businesses. Because I found those were the ones that were the most fun. Those were the ones where I felt like I was actually making a difference, that, they didn't know what they didn't know, and they couldn't, they always found themselves, by the time I was brought in, on the wrong side of a claim. And so now I try to take a much more proactive and educational approach with my clients, try to keep them out of the courtroom, and just try to empower them to identify legal issues before they start, or at least recognize the possibility for legal issues to pop up and try to be prepared for them. Meaning, let's make sure we have the right contracts in place, procedures, policies, that we're kind of dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, so that eventually when something happens, because that's just the reality of our world, is most small business owners will at some point find themselves on the wrong side of a claim, valid or not. I make no opinions on that, because sometimes, there's some very petty types of things that you find. But at least being prepared for it. So it's not coming and like smacks you upside the head and you have no idea and you're scrambling. So
Well,
then
I think
that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of. Now, you've told your story to a lot of people, and I think that's why so many people are feeling engaged to work with you, is because of your unique qualities you had as a litigator, obviously on the other side of me, doing kind of catastrophic case litigation. You're a litigator, you know how to go to court, you know how to get successful outcomes. And then also you have the story about being an entrepreneur. And those two are dovetailed really nicely, because people want to stay out of court when they're small business owners. But with you, they know that if they had to go to court, you have over 15 years being a partner of a large law firm to get them out of the situation. So I think it's a really unique story that small business owners kind of reflect, that you started your own small business and you went through all the trials and tribulations as they did. Now that makes you unique in and of itself, but the way that you have your business set up creates a unique customer experience. So what is it like to be a client of the Gilbertson Law Office?
Yeah. Um, for me, so my clients, one of the biggest reasons I've found that a lot of small business owners just try to stick it out on their own and try to figure it out on their own is because they're afraid of the cost part of hiring an attorney to do things for you. I get it. Lawyers were typically not very economical, and it may seem like your things are going well. So, this form that I found doing a Google search is good enough, right? But at the end of the day, then it ends up that document may not have been filled out correctly. It a lot of times doesn't do what you think it does, anything like that. And so you end up spending a lot more money on the back end trying to fix a problem that you could have avoided right on the front end by doing it right in the first place. So in order to get over that barrier of the money concern, the money talk, I am exceptionally transparent with my fees. I avoid hourly billing if at all possible. I did that for 15 years with the big firm. And for a couple of years after I started my firm, I did some hourly work still as well. Thinking of my life in 6-minute increments was awful. It's like, I don't want to have to keep track of things that closely. My clients don't want to be worried that every time they pick up the phone, they're getting charged for it. I haven't billed for a phone call since I left the big firm, and it's fantastic. It means I actually get phone calls from clients. So I work via flat fees and subscriptions, just depending on what level of assistance the client needs. So for the flat fee, for example, I have startup packages. So if you're looking to start a business, then I have different packages that can include registering the entity and making sure we've got the entity registered, we've got your EIN number, having documents such as your operating agreement and corporate resolutions. I can act as registered agent for some of my clients if they're interested. And some of the packages also include some sort of a contract, whether it's an employment contract, 1099, or service agreement, things like that. And there's just kind of different iterations depending on what they're actually looking for and what they actually need. But that's the price that they get right up front. They say, this is what it's going to be. Here's what's included. That includes going back and forth. If we have 5 iterations or 15, it's not going to be an additional charge. And then it's because for me, I'm laying that foundation to really have a relationship with my clients. Mm-hmm. And that relation piece somewhat comes together with the subscription part of my practice. So for that, then I also have different levels of subscriptions, again, trying to meet my clients where they are. And those all basically for one flat monthly fee, then you have a certain level of access to me and legal projects and things like that. And so with that, I'm proactive with them. We have monthly, I call them monthly just strategy calls, just talk about how things are going. Because one thing I've noticed, and I know is in my experience, is business owners don't see the legal red flags. because they're not trained to, right? That's my job. That's your job. That's what we went to school to do, is to figure out all of those, red flags that are out there. And so just by having a conversation of, hey, what's going on? What do you see that's coming on the horizon? Whatever that looks like. A lot of times I'd be able to say, hey, well, let's put a pin in this and come back to this issue, because this is something that if we don't do this right, we're going to be having a very unpleasant conversation 6 months out from now of trying to fix something that we can get in front of right now and kind of just avoid it altogether. And so between the subscription and this flat fee packages, I truly try to be a partner with my clients. And my subscription clients, most of them have been with me for 4 to 5 years, since they start with me, and they don't go anywhere, which is, I mean, certainly you're going to have a few that kind of come and go, but my core clients, they've been with me one of them has been with me literally since the day I launched my firm. And I've seen his business grow. I've helped him acquire other businesses. He's helped my business grow, and it's just, we both have that sense of security that, we are a partnership, and just in some extent, like he does, if he has a legal issue that comes across his desk, hey, Christina, can you deal with this? Or, hey, can you walk me through what my options are? What do I need to do? And he doesn't have to worry about getting an attorney up to speed on what his business is about, because I already know his business. I'm already in there. I've pretty much all the contracts he's using at this point, I've drafted, like all of his policies and procedures that are legal related. I've had a hand in creating those. And so it's just that long term. And even if somebody's a flat fee client, most of my clients are repeats. Maybe they don't need services every single month, but they'll come back every few months with, oh, we had such a good experience before. Let's do this next piece of the step, or piece of step in the process, whatever it is. And so it's been a good 5 years, and I've got some really great client relationships, and there's a lot of trust and openness and transparency between going both ways.
And I think that you've been so revolutionary in the way that you set it up, because you really thought about what the small law firm needs, and they're not in, or small law firm and the small business needs. And so you really have thought through kind of where they are, what they're going to need for the future. And you act almost as a fractional in-house counsel for them with the subscription service.
Absolutely.
Anything that pops up, regularly talking to, I mean, it's as if they were able to get an in-house counsel, which they could not afford at the time, but they have you. So I think that's been revolutionary and amazing to do the subscription service. And then the flat fee is great. It's all inclusive in different stages from startup, and then there's different stages of next hire, maybe acquiring another business, and you're able to do the flat fee. And again, not the hourly, which is a lot of small business owners may be turned off just because they're not in that position to be able to afford counsel. So I think it's been fantastic, the setup that you've had. Now you're unique in the way that you're set up as well, because you further thought out about what they would needed, not only about formation, maybe some business issues that pop up for the small business owner, but you also thought about their personal life. And what they're going to need for the future to protect the business. And so you started also doing estate work. And I know as a small business owner, both family trust and my law firm, those have dovetailed in my own personal life. And so I'd love for you to just give a training tidbit about why a small business owner may need a trust or estate plan, and why.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things that I didn't set out expecting to ever go into doing trusts and estates, but it all kind of really, I started kind of thinking about doing it, and then COVID hit, and everybody kind of came to terms with mortality, and I'd be having conversations with folks about, we're protecting your business assets. That's what the subscription of Flat Fee is all about, is, just protecting those business assets. And then I would ask somebody, okay, well, what is your personal estate plan? What is your wills? Do you have a will? Do you have a trust? What does that look like? And they just looked at me like deer in the headlights. And I was like, okay, this is something that is super important. And because people don't really think about it. I mean, unfortunately, most people, business owners or not, don't think that they have an estate that they need to be protecting. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, everybody needs an estate plan, right? And it's really important for business owners, because if you don't have an estate plan in place, your business ownership interest is going to be stuck in the probate process, and because it's part of your personal assets, and the probate court is going to be very much involved in that, and it can cause some serious wrinkles for your family and loved ones, whether you're disabled or you're just kind of taken out of the game for a temporary period of time, or if you pass away. If you're a solo owner and you don't have anybody else that's able to access your bank accounts, bank's not just going to let anybody go touch your bank accounts. You're going to have to go to the court. You're going to have to get a court order to be able to get to bank accounts. Yeah, there's just like so many different things that can be avoided if you make sure that you have a personal estate plan in place. And what that looks like can be different for everybody. But you also want to make sure that your estate plan, your personal estate plan, doesn't conflict with your business documents. So every LLC needs to have an operating agreement. Legally, is it required? No. Generally, is it something that we strongly recommend? Absolutely. I think any attorney that works with businesses is going to say you need to have a limited liability operating agreement. And it's not as simple as, again, finding some random form that you find on Google, because that's going to be try to be a one size fits all side of things. But we want something in that operating agreement that says what happens to that owner's interest if they die or they're disabled. And we want to make sure that that's also in line with their personal will or trust. Now, I always recommend for anybody who owns a business, has minor children, or owns real estate, trust-based is the way to go. Because the trust, even after you pass, it still exists, right? So you're able to bypass probate, most of probate. There's still going to be some probate pieces involved, but it simplifies your estate administration. It allows your trustee of the trust to step into your shoes and continue operating the business or do what they need to do. If that means selling the business, liquidating, whatever it is, making sure that the operating agreement references that trust or says this interest is going to the trust, or however you want to. There's lots of different ways that we can set that up, but making sure that both of those pieces jive with one another. And a lot of people, they have their business attorney and then they have their estate planning attorney. Sometimes getting two attorneys to talk to each other and line up on things can be, kind of difficult sometimes. And so I love that I've been able to kind of bridge that gap and provide that, it's a perfect merging there. And so for a lot of business owners, I mean, that's ultimately one of my primary goals, is to really be able to focus on estate planning for business owners, because I understand the business side, because I understand the estate planning side, and because I understand, if you do things a little bit wonky and you haven't done your homework and set things up correctly, I've seen how it can devastate your business and your family. So that's my tidbit, is make sure you have a personal estate plan in place and everything is buttoned up for you.
Well, I think focusing on estate planning for business owners is so important. So especially anybody out there that has any professional business licenses, you may have a family estate, but your family members can't necessarily take over your business, such as my law firm. They're not legally allowed to take over the law firm. So having an operating agreement that really goes through those issues, whether you be in the medical field or you need licensure in any other service industry, I think it's really great to have one single lawyer kind of drafting those two documents. So I think that's fantastic. And if any small business owners want to talk to you about the subscription models, the flat fee models, the estate planning, anything, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, so my website is gilbertsonlawoffice.com. It has information about all of those things that we talked about. It also has links to get on my calendar directly and schedule a consult with me. I do free 15-minute consults for business and for estate planning. Just kind of get a general sense of what you're looking for. Is it something that I can help with? Are we going to work well together? And if not, if we're not a great fit, or I think that you're going to benefit from working with somebody else, I'll tell you that. I'll make the introduction myself. I want to make sure that people are getting the best legal services that they can get. And a lot of times I can fill that role, but there's times, that, hey, maybe we need to talk to somebody else, and I'll make sure that happens. But yeah, definitely the website's the easiest way to learn more about the specifics and get in contact with me.
Perfect. And I'll include all the contact information, even phone number and everything on the show notes. So thank you so much, Christina, for being here. I appreciate so much what you do for small business owners, not only with acting like an in-house counsel, a fractional in-house counsel for so many of us, but also looking out for our personal interests if we were to pass, and making sure that our families are protected with the businesses that we spend so much time and energy building. We want to make sure that those are secure. So going into the state work as well has been great. So we appreciate you so much, and thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.